This is my third time trying to talk about this particular thing. The first time I made let's just say I've spent so far maybe like an hour and a half trying to talk about this particular thing, but I believe it needs to be said. In one of my videos where I describe the dream I had about Paramahansa Yogananda, one, the dream is not just for his followers or not just for people who are connected to SRF fellowship, but anyone who admires his message or what it is he tried to teach. I don't like the phrasing followers too much. The energy of that term seems like too restrictive, like it's too permanent, as if you will never stop being a follower, as if you cannot be a leader yourself, or considered a leader or a guru or a master yourself. And I don't really like that. But anyway, another thing about that dream real quick is, in that dream, if you listen to what I said, I went for his hand to kiss his hand in the dream. I find that very interesting that I would do that, because that's not I can't think of any men on this planet that I would do that for, or that I would feel that way about, really, which is kind of interesting. But I had, I guess, such a high, and I still do have such a high respect for the contribution I feel like his material made, not just in my life, but for the lives of others. With his book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, which I read cover to cover, and it was a very entertaining and insightful book to read. You can see that he's holding it in the photo here. Anyway, I'm to get to it. Here's what I want to say. I felt like the dream, like the meaning behind the dream, and not only the meaning behind the dream, but the biggest thing I believe Paramahansa Yogananda would like me to talk about, or to clear up, is that he wants people to become copies, or to become like copies of him spiritually. By copies of him, I'm not talking about trying to physically look like him, but to walk in his path. Nobody's going to be an exact copy, but I believe you know what I mean. And maybe I shouldn't have used the word copy, but he wants people to emulate his values, not worship him, or not be looking to him like for blessings and stuff like that, or not to look to him for, well, not to look so high up at him that you forget that he was trying to get you to reach the level he was at, or he wants us to reach the level that he was at and to go beyond that. He also contributed, well, he wrote some, I haven't physically held the book, The Second Coming of Christ, that I believe he wrote or it contained uh, concepts that he believed in or that he may have written, and some of them were compiled in the book. I'm not sure, but I listened to a YouTuber read some of his words, and first of all, the reason why I'm talking about Paramahansa Yogananda and that dream is because that dream came to me when I wasn't even thinking about Paramahansa Yogananda. I pretty much, I won't say I forgot about Paramahansa Yogananda, but I just, I just don't remember him being on my mind. So for that dream to come to me, it seemed significant. So, but why I'm talking about it is not just about the dream, but I also remembered that he spoke about Jesus. And he spoke about, well, he wrote a book about Jesus, and he wrote that book about Jesus because he felt like Jesus, well, he felt like Christianity had not gone in the direction that Jesus wanted it to go. And that's why he wrote the book that he wrote about Jesus. So that's what caused me to look more into him, because I remembered that. I wasn't too interested in that. I don't know how many years ago, maybe like over 10, 15 years ago. Probably like 15 years ago, I wasn't too interested in that particular part of his teachings. I was more focused on the autobiography of a yogi and like the divine romance. But I recently remembered he wrote a book, or he talked about Jesus. So I thought to myself, this would be like the perfect person to get a perspective from as it relates to Jesus, because I already had a high level of respect for him. Anyway, it doesn't require you. Well, I believe that Jesus wants us to emulate his path. Jesus wants us to emulate his values. Jesus wants us to be out here like copies of himself, in a way. Not exact copies, but like our own versions, but close enough to where you can feel that wavelength. You can feel that all of these copies are connected to that wavelength. I'm not talking about being a copy as far as looks are concerned. Some people are fixated on that. They believe like if they try to look like Jesus, however Jesus looked like, that's going to, well, I mean, there might be some value in that, but that's not the main thing Jesus wants or Jesus would want people to copy. I'm phrasing this I'm phrasing this so that it doesn't matter what religious background you're connected to, that you understand the principle or the principles that I'm talking about. If you value the overall character of the Jesus of the Bible, whether you believe Jesus, whether you believe that Jesus existed or not, the principles overall seem to be pretty sound and significant. Please don't let some of these people out here keep you from investigating who Jesus was or is, or what Jesus believed in. Don't let that happen. That's what happened to me. I didn't have a lot of respect for Christians and Christianity, and therefore I caused that to not keep me I caused that to keep me from the Bible, because all of these people that seem to have Bibles and talked about Jesus didn't have the values that I respected. At least the ones that I was aware of, they didn't seem to have the values that I respected. So I allowed that to block my perception and keep me from reading the Bible. But anyway, I'd rather talk about the principles that Jesus talked about as opposed to the Bible, because that's, I believe, it's more, well, I think it's less complicated to just talk about the words that were said to have been from Jesus as opposed to the Bible. I think it'll narrow the well, Yeah, I'll finish with this. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. This is like my third time trying to record this. For the followers of Paramahansa Yogananda and Jesus, I know some people might. I don't really want to compare the two. I just feel like I should mention the two because Paramahansa Yogananda spoke about Jesus and has a perspective on Jesus that I felt like I needed to look into. So I'm not comparing them in that way. But I'm saying they both would want people to be out here trying to emulate their values and their principles by going the path that they went, by strengthening their by strengthening their conviction. Well, let me say it differently. The same way we work out our bodies and our minds, or the same way some of us might believe it's responsible to work out our bodies and our minds by deliberately doing certain things every day to strengthen them, we should also be doing that with our spiritual values. And this is the main thing I believe both of them want people to do, as opposed to just look up at them as if they can never ever reach those heights or touch on those wavelengths. And emulate others. Emulate the gangster. Emulate the uh, uh, the uh, movie stars or the whomever. We can emulate these people, but for some reason we don't want to try to emulate Jesus or people who have similar principles or who preach similar principles to Jesus. We can emulate everybody else, take their fashion, their style of communication, their attitudes, but we don't want to do that, or we seem to have some type of aversion to trying to emulate the leaders that we say we value the most. That doesn't seem truthful. On an internal level, that doesn't seem truthful. It seems like we're lying to ourselves. And I feel like the message I'm supposed to speak as it relates to Paramahansa Yogananda and or the words that he spoke of and as it relates to Jesus. There's a few others, but I'm not going to go into that right now. And it's sad. I've seen this pattern. I've seen this pattern repeatedly where people get so fixated on the leader that they don't grow like they should. It's like they're so fixated on the leaders that they forget to try to become a leader, or they don't consider that maybe the leader wants you to be a leader. Maybe the leader wants you to bring people into that group by emulating the leader's values and letting that spread. Let that be contagious. Let that be infectious. Imagine if that infected the world. I don't know if infected would be the best term to use, but I believe you know what I mean. I guess affected. But too many people out here, in my opinion, are more interested in worshiping as opposed to, well, they, I feel like people are worshiping as opposed to working to become the beings those leaders want you to become. Or a different phrasing would be your your worship should be moving you in the direction that you evolve and grow into a leader yourself, much like a child grows to be an adult, or a responsible child grows up to be or can grow to be a responsible adult. Don't parents want their children, don't good parents want their children to be good adults, good responsible adults? So why wouldn't our spiritual leaders want the same thing? Why wouldn't our spiritual leaders want us to be spitting images of them spiritually? Doesn't that make more sense than groveling on your knees, looking up consistently because you believe that those levels of spirituality are unattainable? I'm not saying that it's wrong to get on your knees or it's wrong to look up. But we're supposed to grow as well. We shouldn't be looking up at the same exact values. We should be looking up at new values because we've surpassed the old values. The old values are by surpass, I mean we're so connected to those values that it's like breathing. It's just a part of us. Now we're on to new values to attain. That's what I mean. So I'm opposed to. So anyway, I believe that's what Jesus would want of his followers. And that's what Mr. Yogananda would want of his followers. To grow. To remember that they can grow, that they can evolve.